Hey, beautiful soul. Welcome to Spirit Speakeasy. I'm Joy Giovanni, Joyful Medium. I'm a working psychic medium, energy healer, and spiritual gifts mentor. This podcast is like a seat at the table in a secret club, but with mediums, mystics, and the spiritual luminaries of our time. So come behind the velvet ropes with me and see inside my world as I chat insider style with profoundly gifted souls. We go deep, share juicy stories, laugh a lot, and it wouldn't be a speakeasy without great insider secrets and tips. You might even learn that you have some gifts of your own. So step inside the Spirit Speakeasy. Hey, beautiful soul. Welcome back or welcome in to another episode of Spirit Speakeasy. I'm so happy to be here with you today. I have a little bit of a funny story before we dive into this episode with Monika at Guru Grit that we're going to talk about destiny, karma, and luck as it relates to astrology. And we're going to talk about how this conversation even came about. Monika has this amazing 30% discount code that she's created for Spirit Speakeasy listeners. So make sure that you hang around to get that code. It's also linked in the show notes wherever you're listening or watching this. My funny little story is Monika and I hopped on the call and we're having so many tech issues. It was wild. And I have been having a lot of tech issues lately anyway, with tech not working the way it's supposed to around me. Just a strange little funny thing that's happening. And my laptop actually died at the end of our conversation, 0% battery. We had chatted a little before recording and chatted a little after recording. I just love this woman. So I'm always happy to speak with her, but my laptop died. So I couldn't come back in and record the intro and outro like I normally do. Well, that was 2 days ago. Yesterday, as I'm getting home from the office to hop on my laptop for more calls at home, I went into the restroom to kind of freshen up and I realized a blood vessel in my eye has burst. So half my eye, this just happened yesterday. I am in the next morning. So not even quite like maybe a day and a half after recording with Monika. So for those of you watching on the video version of this or seeing the episode clips, I look fine in the episode, but right now in this intro and outro, my eye is looking bloody. It doesn't hurt at all. It's totally fine. Nothing happened. So put your mind at ease. If you're seeing the video of this, everything's fine. You're going to really love this conversation with Monika though, because I know so many of us at times, especially when we're going through something that feels really hard, sometimes the inclination can be to get a little woe is me, to think like, do I just have bad luck, or why is my luck seeming never great? Or this idea of like, well, if there's this one pre-planned destiny for me, someone needs to tell me what it is so I can get on that path so all of my happiness will be sorted out. So these are some of the reasons why I really just wanted to sit down with Monika and understand from her perspective as a master astrologer, what does destiny and karma and luck look like in our astrological charts as individuals, and then also as communities, like our country, our global situation, and what can we know about that? So this conversation hopefully will be really eye-opening for you to understand your own free will and your own control in your own destiny and luck, and then also what is actually in your chart and what is part of what we come into this experience with as far as astrology is concerned. So without further ado, grab yourself a cup of something, because this is a long conversation but a goodie, and you're gonna love hearing again from our friend Monika at Guru Grit. Hey, beautiful souls, welcome back or welcome in for another episode of Spirit Speakeasy. We are having all of the crazy tech issues, all of the fun mishaps, and we haven't even started yet. I am really excited to share this conversation with you. We have a returning guest. I'm going to read her bio. This is Monika. Her business is gurugrit.com. Monika is a passionate astrologer and longtime student of the occult. She runs Guru Grit, a place for learning, which aims to inspire and educate rather than propagate fear-based attitudes within spirituality. We love that. Energetic and curious, she reads as well as she writes and teaches on many subject matters. I'm not reading this very well, within the esoteric realm. When she's not teaching or reading for her amazing clients, Monika busies herself spreading knowledge from her vintage book collection, running, cooking, traveling, avoiding scratches from her greatest spiritual teacher, a mean cat named Mila.
Yes.
Welcome in, Monica. I'm so happy to have you.
Well, thank you so much for having me again.
I love having you. And actually, I think of you all the time. So I want to let everyone in on how today's chat came about. I am just a patterns girl. I'm always noticing patterns and themes, and it helps me in my work and in my life as a human. Humaning's hard, as we've been talking about. And I notice this pattern of people when they're coming in for intuitive or psychic readings, really feeling like they're struggling in this area of finding their destiny or finding luck. Like, oh, why are these bad things always happening to me? Or is XYZ just going to be my lot in life? Right. It's kind of, I mean, often when we're feeling quote unquote down on our luck, we have that little bit of tough perspective sometimes, but I feel people struggling so much with like, if I could just find that job or partner or situation or whatever it is that's destined for me. Oh my, and I know that
Mhm.
astrology speaks to this. It's not really the way I work. So that's why I'm excited to have this chat with you and really understand these ideas like as they relate to astrology, because astrology does deal with destiny to a
Mhm.
degree, right?
Mhm. To an extent. So the first thing would be, I have to say, when you said, when I get this, when I get that, I'll be happy. I think we all watched too much MTV Cribs in the early 2000s.
Yeah,
And
I
we think
agree.
that there's something glamorous out there for everyone. And yes, there is something for everyone, but it's not going to look the same for everybody. So it's a mentality for sure. It's like a very black and white thing. If I get
Yeah,
the degree and the house and the spouse and the car and the 5 vacations and whatever else, then I'll be happy. And everybody knows people like that actually
yeah,
materially do have everything and they're not very happy and they don't know why they're happy. So that's the first thing, is the actual definition of desire. And then in astrology, there's two things. Yes, destiny is a thing we will discuss, but also happiness. Some people are actually born to learn how to become happy. I realized as a
that's
child, this is
interesting.
a skill I'm going to have to teach myself, because I couldn't understand why other 12-year-olds were beaming and I was really melancholy and like
Okay.
sulky or a deep thinker. I like being alone. And so for men and women, it's measured differently, but you can see, things like self-esteem, confidence, and propensity for happiness. So for me, in my instance, I'm just naturally like dark, and I'm not resilient. I've had to teach myself to get over certain things, and that's normal. Life's not supposed to be easy all the time. Like,
Yeah.
food tastes better when you're hungry, but I just wouldn't hear it. Plus I was young. You're not going to listen to anything, but you figure it out. So some people, they'll be happy with anything. They could live under a bridge, but they're free. You don't tell them what to do. They
Yeah.
don't care. They're happy. They live in a small apartment. They're happy. That's just some place they go to hide from the winter weather. They're good enough for them, right? And then other people who could be born similar to myself, it's never enough, because you don't have that stop. You don't have that filter to know when to stop.
Yeah.
So it just depends. That's one thing. And then in
Okay.
terms of destiny, destiny itself can be measured. And there's several ways to do this. So, and the thing about destiny is there's still an element where something has to be earned. I think that when we think of destiny, oftentimes we'll think, oh, they're destined for stardom. They were destined
Yes.
to win the lottery. They were destined to succeed. Yes, but in the material, if you're going to win the Nobel Prize for your research in biology or something, you still have to go to medical school. You're not going to quantum
Right.
leap from your high school bedroom into, superstardom in the scientific field, in the medical field, just because. Like, it takes a lot of effort.
Okay,
So
good.
we
I'm
have,
excited we're talking about this. Definitions, I think, are, I mean, I know you and I are both like, get really frustrated when the words aren't right, but the definitions are so important, right? Because it's how are we defining success and happiness? And then how are we defining destiny? Does it
hmm,
mean this magical unfolding of something that's going to fix all your problems? It sounds like you're saying not so much. Is that what it means in astrology? It's
kind
not
of,
what it
but
means to me.
this is the thing. In the doing of that, that is the magic. It's the
Yeah.
process. It's not the end of the process. The process is the magical part, and it's like, it's alchemy. It's inner alchemy. But a
Yeah.
lot of people don't want to hear it because they don't like their circumstances. So they just want to go from here to here and not acknowledge the middle portion, which, as we know, is impossible,
Okay.
so,
Can I
but
ask you a question here?
yes.
Okay. I'm like, I don't want to derail you because I want to hear that too. But it's so fascinating because as you're saying that, for me, if I'm reading psychically for someone and they, for example, are saying, what's the career I'm destined to do? I will tell them, from the way I understand right now, everyone knows I'm always learning. It doesn't work that way. Let me take a look at the core qualities of your soul, who you are, what your soul wants to express in this lifetime. And as long as your work is fulfilling these qualities, likely you will feel fulfilled in this work, right? So, as it relates to what you're just talking about, is it not so much like here's the key to this like magical destiny, but here's the way you will find this path of fulfillment?
Pretty much. So let's say it's a career thing.
Okay.
And the person has Venus on the 10th house cusp. So Venus governs healers. So if I said, your moon is looking good, this, you should go into the field of healing. You have a capacity for that. But if you're adamant that you want to be a police officer, well, okay, try it. And you can succeed. I don't know that you'll be fulfilled because your
Yeah.
natural inclination is towards nurturing or giving or something like this. Okay. So that's the same thing. It's like, I can see you have a strong capacity for something, but to get it, you have to actually work on it. So sometimes
Right.
people will say like, but I really wanted to do this. And my mother wanted me to always go to medical school or something, but I wanted to be a dancer, and I think, well, why can't you do both?
Yeah.
Just have it as a hobby or figure it out. So it's not black and white. And I feel clients that have lived a lot of life and they come to you at a certain stage in life or age in life, they're a lot more relaxed because they have a knowing, like a subconscious knowing that even when it looks like it's not working out, it actually is because they've failed enough times and succeeded enough times to kind of relax. And it's the truth, like when you pull back, things tend to
Mm-hmm.
come to you a lot more easily, which again factors into the start about the health of the chart. Some people that are just a little bit more optimistic leaning or they heal like Wolverine, like my sister's really lucky. She's just kissed by God. I don't know. She's very lucky. And she doesn't have to worry about most things. They just kind of work out. But I'm
Yeah.
very type A. I'm really high strung. So I've had to learn the less you worry, it just fixes itself. So it's a
Okay.
character thing, but also exactly capacity. You have a capacity for real estate. You should be a salesperson. You should be an author. You should be a teacher. I don't care what you teach, but get out there. That's what you're meant to
Yeah.
do.
But if you're seeing someone has, like, you see that they have the capacity in their chart as a healer, is it broad, for example, the way that could express in their life? Like maybe they're a veterinarian and they heal with animals. Maybe
Mm,
they're like an energy healer and they heal with energy. Maybe they're
yes.
maybe they train healers and they're a doctor, but at the collegiate, professor level. Is
Yes.
that true?
Yes, it can be done. So your chart is a really good example because the eighth house is, people call it the house of death, but it's a house of transformation, which means that its effects aren't necessarily seen, but they're felt. So
Okay.
things that can't be seen. So like if someone had Mars in the eighth house and Mars was their 10th ruler, then they should go into the oil industry. You extract it from the earth, you mine minerals, you mine gems, Venus and Mars are together. You could be a jeweler. You could actually be mining, you could be doing things like that. So it's energetic. It's deeply psychological. So people who have a strong eighth house, you have a very strong eighth house, not like a little, like a lot, then
Okay.
those people naturally, I would say, even for your own well-being, why don't you get some Reiki? Go to a hypnotherapist. Go see someone that can make you feel better, even if you don't understand those alternative methods, which funny
Yeah.
to say alternative, they've been around forever, but maybe since Atlantis, this is the remnants of what's left over of that wisdom. But that can really help a person, to explore different types of therapies, not just anything that's sort of put in front of them. They should do, and it's a house of research. They should do their own research. So thinking of high level things with the masses. So your sun is included in this, and the sun will, and Saturn actually aspects as well. So the sun is like the king, a powerful, a leader. And Saturn is the masses. So you could see people will turn to you and say, I need your advice, or you could teach people. So the difference between like a physician who's a GP and someone who's staff of surgery, um, and teaches, and they do academics, they do research, is going to be
Right.
the giants. It's going to be Sun, Saturn, Jupiter should have some correspondence with that governing planet of that cusp. And then when they all kind of combine, you don't see that that's just a person who's successful. That's a person who has stamina that's superhuman and they function optimally. I mean, they are at like 100 all the time and they're going all the time. And that could be their destiny. But when something is destined, let's say, the number one thing everybody has in their chart is the North Node.
Okay.
That's what they call like the soul pulls you there. So it's called Rahu in Vedic astrology, and it's the head of a ghastly dragon, and it's just a head, so it has no body. So he's insatiable. He wants to devour life, and they say that if you kind of resist his pull and his urges, you'll be flung into what's familiar to you. So you will never really evolve. So even if something is destined or fated, you still have to work for it,
Right.
if this makes sense. And if I may just give a little blurb, I think it was Daryl Anka who channels Bashar. Someone asked him
Oh
about
yeah, I know who he is.
free
Yeah.
will. Okay, he's Canadian born, fun fact. I think he's in LA all his life, but he said, well, think of destiny something to the effect of like, there's a hallway and you're destined to walk down that hallway. So I'm paraphrasing, but it's like, it doesn't matter if you walk, run, cartwheel, skip, crawl, cry, or laugh while you're doing it, but you're walking down that hallway. Like you can choose
Yeah.
how to do it, but it's getting walked through because it's what your soul opted into. And a lot of people also, I think they believe if something is destined or fated, it's a positive thing. Like we are
Right.
star-crossed lovers, like Romeo and Juliet. It's fated. I'm like, okay, it lasted 3 days and 6 people died. Nobody really wants that. Let's be honest.
That
You
doesn't
can
make
just have
sense.
the
Yeah.
love without all of that smoke.
Yeah.
But so let's go over it like fate. Okay, destiny. I'm European, I'm white. I have dark brown eyes, I have dark brown hair, I'm tall. Like those things are fixed karmas. They cannot change. That's what I
Right.
chose in this life. You choose your parents, you choose those things. That's just what it is, okay? You can see, choose to grow my hair long. I choose to dye my hair. It's been every color, but artificial colors will get there. It's going to happen. I can choose what I do with that. Like, I'm tall, but I'll wear heels anywhere. Or you can wear flats, you can wear what you want.
Right.
And now the other thing is free will. So there's an amazing astrologer that I learned a lot from by the name of Ernst Wilhelm. And he has this quote where he says, so that's fate. Okay. 60 to 70% of your chart is predestined. All that stuff I mentioned, my birthplace, your birth time, whatever.
Okay.
The 30% that's free will is God given. Okay. God gave it to you. So the energy that creates everything in existence flows through you. That's how powerful it is. That 30%, you can override the whole thing.
Okay.
So, and I know this to be true. There's a lady that does channeling, and she had her awakening in her mid or late 40s. And at this point, she was already, successful in the corporate world, had children, married her, I think, sweetheart from university. And she says when this was all revealed to her, how like the nature of our energetic universe actually works, she said she realized she had a soul contract with her soulmate, but married this other man. And she said, but I wouldn't change anything. I love my life. I love my husband. I'm in love with him. And she was laughing. It was like funny to her. So there's no consequence. It's like you can't make a
Okay.
mistake. You don't like
Yeah.
sever something because you'll just come back around and do it again. So I think we need to give ourselves a little grace, more grace, a lot of grace, and give
Right.
yourself a little break. You're doing the best you can with what you have. And the point about the free will is really to teach yourself about your own sovereignty. You govern your life. You govern yourself. You are responsible for yourself. You are responsible for your life. No matter what's fated or destined, you can actually control how you feel about that and how you think about that. And in doing so, you alter the circumstances effectively.
Which is, I guess, the coolest part of it. I want to go a little bit back to the North Node and talk about this some more because everyone has this in their chart, right? This is
Mhm.
something everyone can find. North suggests it's near the top, but I think it's somewhere different for everybody, right? This is where I'm very remedial in
Oh, yeah, it could be
astrology.
anywhere in the chart
So it can
because
be
it can be.
anywhere in their
Mhm,
circle.
mhm. Yes.
So how do they figure out you cast it? Someone has to cast your chart
Yes.
or you cast it, right?
Well, yeah, you can cast it. There's like astro.com or
Those are the
astro
free
theme,
ones.
like free
Yeah.
chart generators. Just go or vaultoftheheavens.com. You put in your birthday, the day, the month, the year, and the time that you were born. You need the time.
Right.
And then as accurate as you can get it, because even 10 minutes can throw it off. And then you cast it. So it can be in any of the 12 houses. And so the house will be indicative, and so will the sign and
Okay.
anything that sits with it. That's even more so.
So you're saying based on where someone's north node is, they kind of will feel pulled or drawn towards certain pursuits or interests or hobbies
Sure.
throughout their life or at different times, or it can show up. I mean, I always feel like all this is on a spectrum and there's not very hard and fast answers. It's kind of like for some people earlier, for some people all the way
Yes,
through. Is that how it is?
it can be. So mine is I'm very much a loner, lone wolf. I work best alone. And I jokingly say you can see it in some people, they just don't play well with others. Not because they're mean, they're just much more effective when they do things on their own. And some people can, let's say like North Node and Libra or Aquarius, you are great in groups. That's something you should be drawn to. So when you were saying about, let's say, professions, for example, let's say the 10th ruler is in the fifth house with the North Node. Well, you should work with children. Or if they say, I want to write, I'll say, well, you should write children's books. You should illustrate something for young people. It'll be good for you, And if it was the opposite, which sometimes is the case, then that's when I say, you know, if you're a business owner, you'll struggle to hire people because everybody will be a subordinate. Like they won't
Mm,
respect you. They won't listen to you. You need to hire people in your own age range and level of experience because you might pay young people less, but it will cost you in the end. You have to be mindful. So yes, the houses can indicate. So for example, I think you'll see it in the charts of some people who are quite successful, like in politics, fame, whatever. But North Node in the first house is you. It's your identity. It basically, your ascendant or rising sign signaled to existence that you physically incarnated. You're here now. So that's a destined incarnation. So you're meant to feel like you're supposed to do something big. And again, it's all perspective because I have had clients who are very successful or have a profile and they're like, yeah. But the happiest people are the ones that I see a lot of Capricorn energy and it's very stern. And I say, you know what? People don't give Capricorns the credit they deserve. They're quite rebellious. I said, did you break away? Like you're like a chain breaker or a pattern breaker, a rebel. What did you do in your family that you broke away from? Were you the first person to move away, like go to university? They're like all of the above. Like I left the town,
wow.
I moved to the city. I'm the first person to go to college. I'm the first person to not do this or not get in trouble or, something. And that's huge. They
Yeah.
broke that generational instinct. And that's not easy. That's because we know like spiritually, it's on the surface, anybody like, people like my job's hard. Look, it's 2024. Everyone's busy and everything's hard. Okay.
Yeah.
But we all work, we all do something, but the inner work is really the juice of life. And those people without any prompting or any guidance, just they figure it out, and they come out the other
Yeah.
end into the light and it's the most beautiful thing. So that to me is a very sweet form of destiny and everybody has
Yeah.
that. But there are others, you could see something to the effect of a stellium, which is 4 or more planets in the same house. And I'm pretty strict. I don't include outer planets unless I'm doing
Okay.
mundane astrology or unless it's really pushing up against a very prominent planet like the moon. And if they had it like, whatever, Sun through Mars in the 10th house or in the first house, in the seventh house, then you'll see, let's say in the 10th or the seventh, which can attract fame and a lot of attention. It's the house of trade as well, business, foreign countries, travel. Maybe a person like that, I think Kim Kardashian has it in Libra. I'm using her as an example. It's a really good
Yeah.
example. You don't actually you don't have to be good at anything. You'll just
Okay.
succeed. Of course, there's a price for it still. Like maybe it's your nervous system or your reputation, or
Yeah.
you sacrifice your sleep. You take a lot
Mental
of risks,
health. Your
mental
mental
health,
health.
but you will grab people's attention. You will be given jobs that you'd apply for. You'll maybe take a
Yeah.
vacation for free a couple times in your life, which is more than most people can say. So there are some things that are just kind of extraordinary. And if you were born
Yeah.
6 hours before or after would not be the case. So it's really not an accident.
So
And
take
so,
someone
yeah.
like the example you just gave, like Kim K, for example. I never talk about her, but so she got famous in the ways we all know in pop culture. But if her chart would be what it was hypothetically, and she decided, okay, instead of doing this path, the one we know about, she was going to go build Habitat for Humanity and meet a humanitarian doctor. And would she then naturally draw more success in that
Yes.
chosen occupation?
Yes, when a chart is strong, it really doesn't matter what the person turns their hand toward.
Okay, this
They
is great
just,
news.
yeah, they just figure it out. But it's really selective. So,
Okay, so
the
not
thing about
everybody has that,
stelliums,
but
say like, you have a circular chart, like imagine you're holding like a tray, and there are only 3 points you can put that stellium. and hold it comfortably. The
Okay.
other 9 houses, it actually damages the chart because it's too much energy. So you have to, again, tell people the dreaded answer, which is you have to do
Yeah.
the inner work. And nobody wants to hear that really. They're like,
Yeah.
oh man, I have to do more work. But it's good work. It's like journaling and meditating and praying
Yeah.
and reading. I don't think it's hard, but yeah, it's something you have to come to terms with because again, it's just taking it back to that mentality of I want it and I want it now. In fact, I wanted it yesterday. I don't want to do anything to get it. Well, okay, you don't have to do anything on the external, but you have to change. Like you have to be the agent of change for your life because it can't change before you do. That's just the truth. But some people like
Yeah.
myself, you see, they're very stubborn, so
I think we're
it
all
takes a
stubborn in
while.
our own ways, right?
Yes.
And I mean, sometimes I know you and I agree that sometimes there are things that just happen in this world, right? We're in a world of chaos. So also things are being thrown at us constantly. And sometimes your car just breaks down and it's nothing to do with the grand scheme of things. It's just things happen, right? That we're also dealing with. It sounds like part of what you're saying, I could be just making this up, but the person's destiny in their chart, even though it can express in different ways, is it often leaning towards their natural personality or not always?
Usually it does. And
Okay.
I think too, people are usually aware on some level, but they can't,
This is what I'm wondering. Yeah.
they can't like really articulate it or something like, I'm trying to think of a good example. Okay, say somebody ends up living abroad, you know, and they come back to me and say, 3 years ago, you told me my luck would change if I moved abroad. And I thought you were nuts. I was nice about it. I told you some of what you said was nice, or true. And then I met this wonderful person and they lived in wherever. We fell in love and I'm getting married. And you're right. I don't live where I've always lived and know what I've always known. And I couldn't have like thought, but they said the life that you described, I have always known to be true, but they couldn't see the path to it somehow.
Right.
So clearly, you've been picked up and flung across the world and now everything's worked out as it should. But sometimes we just need a little bit of guidance. That's another one.
Yeah.
You just need to be guided. But, and then luck you mentioned as well,
Yes.
which is the
Well, let
ninth
me just
house.
ask you really
Mhm.
quick. Is some of this just like being in action and making choices? And I know I want to talk about working on yourself too, because I know that's such an important part of like, if we can't get out of our own way to move to the other country to have the experience, the fear piece that I feel like is always underneath is like, one, I want to pre mitigate any discomfort. And two, like you said, I can't see the clear path there, which can't even begin to unfold until we are in action and working on our stuff.
True. So that's another thing you said. Just I don't know if you ever watched 30 Rock, but there's a line
No.
Alec Baldwin when he's talking to Tina Fey. He's like, "Lemon, life is about minimizing regret," which I think is great for a Virgo's ears. But really, most people they live in the moment and they plan
Yeah.
towards the future. So yes, I know it can be uncomfortable, but you can't achieve anything without actually doing something. So let's say the path isn't clear, you don't know where to go, how to make it work, but you have to busy yourself somehow. It really is about detachment and calming down your mind. So a friend of mine is a very good martial artist. There's nothing she hasn't done. And she tells me, she's like, you read so much, you study so much. I bet, she said like, all you need to do to like win the lottery, because you're so mental, is step into the gym a few times a week and just like box someone, And I
Oh,
thought,
that's interesting.
she said like, you have to ground yourself in your body. But sometimes
Yeah, that's
doers, they
interesting.
do so much they don't like pay attention to their feelings. And then some people are
Okay, that's a good
hysterical.
point.
They need to just read a book and be more mental. So it's always this energetic imbalance in the perception of yourself and your life, basically. And so that ties in with luck because people think that being lucky is just something that's spontaneous and it's given to you. And this I find so funny because let's say you take a really pretty girl and she goes to a house party and she's looking for love, but she's, frantic and thinking and overthinking and like not really in the moment. And she meets 5 soulmates that night and still goes home alone. Doesn't give anyone her number, or she does and doesn't pick up and blocks them all.
Yeah.
So I could say to her, "You're so lucky you met 5 nice boys. I don't meet 5 guys in 10 years. How do you meet 5 guys in one night?" And she's like, "Oh, no, 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 I didn't meet any. They all suck." It's like you don't have the capacity to even detect your own fortune.
Right.
So, and it does happen. You hear it on the news. People win, like in Toronto, I think last week, there's a ticket sold for $65 million. For context, for American listeners, they don't tax lottery winnings here.
Oh
So
my
someone,
gosh. I'm like, oh
yeah,
my gosh, that's so much money.
and it's an unclaimed ticket. So who's the
Wow.
lucky person? The person that bought it or the people that are hearing about it going, wow, what a lucky person. Meanwhile, no one's getting a cut of
Yeah.
that pie. So,
Oh my goodness.
mm.
Yeah. So a lot of it's perspective and personality and
And what you do with it.
yeah, the lens we're looking through. Maybe I mean, I'm so Capricornus over here that like that's my lens is like, I need to be in action. I need to like, what's my action steps? What can I do process, but it's not I don't think it's any of our favorite thing to do, but it does
Mm.
seem in every angle of this work, whether it's me and you talking or different practitioners I talk to, that seems to be this like magic component that I mean, it's not a microwave, right? It's a slow cooker, but that free will contribution and working on ourselves continuously, ongoing, it seems to be the secret sauce
It is a
for
secret sauce.
everything,
Yes.
right?
Yes, because it's all about your relationship to yourself. And if I can quote Abraham Hicks, one lady was asking about, I think, relationships, and they said, "Do you want the secret to manifestation? The thing that you want is almost never on the path of that thing. So, like, if you're looking for a husband or a wife, you're thinking I have to join singles clubs, I have to look cute and go dancing. Take your mind off of that. Like, just again, join a running club,
Yeah.
craft, learn how to repair cars. Like, take your mind off of that, because you give yourself a break. As I was saying earlier, you give yourself some grace when you stop thinking about your problems. And then, in fact, you're able to recognize how lucky you are at the same time. You kind of like open up, you feel more broad. But yeah, speaking of luck, everyone has one of these too. It's the ninth house. And
Okay.
Jupiter is
So
also
that's
the
where we
planet
need
of
to
luck.
check is the ninth
Yeah.
house and see what's all up in yours to know
There you go.
what's your luck
So,
situation.
so if you have a malefic in the ninth house, like Mars or the sun, that's very different from having something such as the moon. So let's say it's the sun. A lot of people are like, oh, but the sun is like so serious and it's hot and he burns and he's scary. Well, then I would tell that person, you should work in large corporations or a government institution. You'll be really lucky there. So, or if you want to be self-employed, you could have a lot of luck in those things. If it's something softer, then just like it'll come easier to them. Or if the planet that rules that sign is doing well, they'll be more predisposed to certain things than other people. But again, it's
Okay.
not like I think people want black and white answers. It's
For
not
sure
black and
they
white.
do.
Yeah.
That's why I keep pushing into them because I know if I don't ask them, people are going to be like, "Well, you didn't ask," and I'm like, "Yeah, but I know that's not the answer." So like that, we have to
Yeah.
say these things.
All roads lead to Rome, pretty much. It's always you. You're the
Yeah.
answer to your own self,
Well, wherever
basically.
you go, there you are, right? Like,
Yes, exactly. Oh my God, yes, exactly.
yeah.
I
So
was thinking that.
you can have the best luck and the best setup and the best skill set, but if we're not working on ourselves, even if we move to the most abundant kingdom in all the land
Yeah,
with
you're not going to
all
like the
the
food. It's going to be
yeah,
something.
there's going to be
Yeah.
something that you're like, I'm not having any luck and abundance here.
See, when I was in my early 20s, I went to Italy and I was so excited. I was like traveling on my own for the first time. And I remember going to Rome and it was just so crowded. It was so hot. I didn't have AC. I was just so ready to go home. And I remember standing there looking at the Colosseum, which in your head is a lot different than when you actually
Yeah.
see it in person. I remember thinking, wow, I can't believe I don't like it here. And I thought to myself, well, I don't know where else to go because I criticize wherever I am. And I think I joke too hard. I was like, I'm gonna have to leave the planet and then I don't know where to send myself. I joke too hard because now Elon Musk is threatening to colonize Mars. And I'm thinking, well, I don't want to go there either. I just have to leave the solar system. But it's just about perspective. Now I would love to go to Italy and be carefree in
Yeah.
22. It's like,
Well, yeah. With age comes wisdom, they say.
exactly. I would never complain
Yeah.
again. As long as I'm on vacation, it's fine.
Is that part of the turnaround? I mean, I know we all know like having a gratitude practice is important. It is how I shake myself out of a funk.
Mm.
I've traveled enough that I have a strong internal appreciation for like water that heats right up, that is long lasting for showers, that is a good pressure. You know what I mean? Like those I can go
Mm.
there and find enough gratitude to like turn my mood around. Is that I don't know, is that part of the ingredients is kind of the perspective we're looking through in the moment when we're trying to figure these things out?
Well, astrologically, it can actually tell you. So, like I mentioned myself, I don't have any of that. Like I'm not
Okay.
resilient. I'm a glass half empty person naturally.
Okay.
So very critical and like scrutinizing. So for me, it's a lot more, it just takes a lot more repetition. And so I think, you know what? Like I said earlier to you, I said, food tastes better when you're hungry, but you don't like being hungry. But that's a thing.
Right.
If you always, every meal that you ate was the best meal you've ever had, you would never be really that blown away by anything. So it's all about
Yeah.
contrast, and we live in a world of contrasts. And then for birth charts, I believe, I sometimes I get like younger clients or people who are really excited about astrology, and they're like, I was playing around and I just made the most perfect chart and I want to give birth on that day in like 15 years when I get married. I think that's wonderful, but there's no such thing as a perfect birth chart. Every planet can't be exalted at the same time? And even
Yeah.
if it was, the person's going to miss the best part of life, which is figuring things out on your own, like taking off, energetically when you get this new perspective or you sharpen a spiritual skill, you feel like the training wheels come off and you're like, oh, this is fun. Like I'm in charge. I get to do this. But you can feel that way about your daily life, the earthly life, which I feel a lot of spiritual people like, but that's the mundane. That's the matrix. We have to break out. It's like, it's whatever you make it though. You can make it
Oh
wonderful by
yeah. I mean,
being
enjoy it while
grateful.
you're here, right? Like just
Yeah.
because you're yeah, just because you're in a matrix doesn't mean you can't look at the scenery. It's why I don't really like video games because all I want to do is like go around, look at the graphics, and I don't want anyone throwing anything.
Yes. I'm trying to admire this amazing work that I could never make. I don't want to get,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, hit with a battle axe or something. Exactly.
I want to go back to luck a little bit. Is there anything we can do to kind of like, I don't know. What's your definition of luck, first of all? Let's just start there.
Luck to me is okay. I'm going to give like the most
It's
annoying
okay. I just
answer,
want to make
but
sure we're talking from a similar place.
luck, I think people feel is a spontaneous positive event. So to me, when someone thinks that they're lucky or says they're lucky, and even I do it, I think you just haven't trained your mind because it's actually something you could be lucky 100% of the time if you scrutinize every thought you think. The ones you don't
Okay.
like, you banish. The ones you like, you amplify. Like Abraham Hicks says, if you have 10 things going on in your life and 9 of them are crummy, they're problems, but one good thing, by paying attention to the one good thing, the other 9 have no choice but to turn around and improve. And so, but my mind is not optimistically leaning naturally. So I had to train that
Okay.
out of myself. Like a friend of mine, she was going through a really difficult divorce and I was complaining about a bad first date. And she went, pain is relative. So I'm not offended, but you have a tendency to be melancholy like my ex-husband. And she went, don't worry, we're going to beat that out of you. And I thought it was so funny at the time. It was like 10 years ago. It was the best thing anyone's ever said to me because you're not
Yeah.
feeling like you're waiting on the sidelines of life to be offered a job, to be chosen by the perfect person, to wait for something good to happen to you. You take control. But luck, astrologically, can kind of be measured in a way. Like I said, I look at my sister's chart. I'm like, this person is really emotionally resilient. They're touchy. They're a little bit, sensitive, but they're lucky because it balances it out that they get over hurts. I don't. I hurt for
Right.
years. It's like for sport. But like I'm tough externally, but then I'm like, oh, I can really hold on to stuff. So it's just perspective, but it can be measured. Like, so the big one is the ninth house and the planet Jupiter. So the big thing
Okay.
people will ask is like, I really want to be lucky. What can I do? Well, you would look to the planet of luck and see how he's doing. If he's weak, I'm so sorry. You might have to be a vegetarian to turn it around, but there are ways to fix it if you want to.
Okay. So you were saying your friend that made the comment that okay, you're a little melancholy leaning and we gotta work this out. Was that your personal development that you were like, okay, how can I is it through noticing that like how did you work that out in yourself? If someone is noticing something in themselves that they're like, oh, this trait is not helping me at
Yeah. So
all. I've had to
it
do
did.
this too.
It happened to me twice. So once when I was a lot younger, maybe like 19, I
Girl,
was like,
twice is
but
pretty good. It's happened to
pardon?
me a lot.
It's
Twice
happened to
is
you a lot.
pretty good. I'm like, twice is you're doing good.
But no one minced words. That's what it was. One person said something like, I said, what this person said is wrong. I'm not letting it go. It was unethical. It was cruel. And I'm not going to tolerate it. And then they said to me,
Okay.
you know what? You can find something wrong about someone's actions at some point in your life, almost with every person, but you're going to be very isolated if you don't learn to like let it go or forgive. But the thing is, I'm really emotionally intense, so I can't like have an acquaintance or halfway like someone. We're like really close
Mm,
friends, or you're just like a coworker to me. I just like don't really know what's going on in your life. And they were like, well, you need to like cool your jets a little. And I was like, no, because they're wrong. It's like, look, everybody can be a little bit pissy and have a bad day. So I've had to
yeah.
learn to chill out a lot, and yeah, like people say things they shouldn't, do things they shouldn't. You don't have to take every single thing personally. So I've learned
Yeah.
that. And then when she said that to me, I was like, I had no idea. I just thought, I was dwelling because I was sad and that was allowed. And she was like, yeah, like one afternoon is fine. It doesn't need to be like 5 days. And I thought, oh my God, this mother of two is going through her second divorce and she's over here shining, laughing, buying a new wardrobe. What have I got to be upset about? So it like
Yeah.
shook me. And I thought, well, thank God someone said something, because
Yeah.
yeah, you get to choose happiness and choose joy. Like it's the key to living a good life. So yeah, I've had to
Yeah.
like teach myself. And looking at astrology, I thought that too. I was like, I am not born to be happy. I have to learn to be happy. And actually I went to a wedding on Saturday and the lady sitting next to me, she goes, would it be a correct estimate to assume that you are a joyful person? You're just full of joy. And I thought, thank you. But really I'm thinking to myself, it took like 20 years. Thank you so much. It took a long time.
That's such a good point because, well, first of all, your two people that mentioned that to you are giving very strong Page of Swords energy, very like truth delivered without tact, like hard truth that just sometimes comes in a messy way. But I guess we all have that ability, like each in our own lives, areas that we're noticing are just a little sticky, or that we tend to be a little more, I don't know, prickly is the word I like in there. Or like things that are lighting us up, like why am I always getting angry in traffic? Like, what is going on
Mm.
in me that I have no chill about this? Do you know what I mean? So, I don't know. Would you agree that that's kind of the place, one of the places to look for someone that's like, okay, I want to feel better overall. I want to focus on the things that are good. I want to work on myself. How do I start? For me, it's always like, let's just start noticing things.
That's truly it. Just
Yeah.
reflect your experience in life is reflecting back to you what you are. So one of the things that's so funny is, like apparently like the dating world is in flames, okay? It's just like going down. And people are like, a lot of people aren't honest, they're not honorable, this and that. And that used to just wind me up so much. Like back in the day when a dude's like, can I get your number? I'll call you. And then they text you, they're like, hey, it's Dave from Friday. And I would sit there and go, but he said he'd call. Like to most people, they would think that's not a big deal. In my brain, I'm like, well, you're a coward and a liar. And it would just annoy me until I realized it was just a societal or like a massive generational thing or a cultural thing. But
Yeah.
I, for my standard, never let it slide. I never let it slide. And now that I'm older, I'm like, who cares? They are what they, even if it was a cowardly move, who cares? I'm not the coward. So what does it matter?
Yeah.
But when you're young brain, or like when you're just so used to certain emotional patterns, it's hard. It's like, what do they say? Like fish in a fishbowl. You don't even know you're in
Yeah.
water. So that's how I felt my whole life. I thought like, I have a very like strict ethical code for many things, how I operate.
Yeah.
But you don't have to care. And I would never react, but it would just like anger me. And I thought that's dumb, because that person ultimately isn't mistreating you. They're mistreating themselves. So if they lost the chance to know you or to stay married to you, whatever the case may be, work with you, whatever, they missed out. So like
Yeah.
there's a trend on one of the apps where people are saying no revenge because hurting a good-hearted person is your own fault, it's your own loss. And I'm like, yeah, that's actually true. Just everyone relax. But yeah, everything in your experiences reflect, like road rage, for example. And the funny thing is, the more you heighten emotion when you react, the more likely it is to happen again and again. You
Yeah.
starve it out. Like they say, feed the faith and starve the fear. So if
Yeah.
you're
That's
no,
such good advice. Oh my
right?
gosh.
So if you say you want to be married, the last thing I would do as a single person wanting matrimony is go on like an app and start scrolling all like the hate content of the opposite gender or the
Yeah,
same
don't be
gender.
miserable. Don't like create more misery. Don't like, yeah. And it is, to your point, I mean, it is about finding that balance. I have like a little crew of single people over the years that often come to mind that I've either seen like periodically or on and off. And it's kind of like, yeah, there's certain things that are common sense, right? Like you like go outside, like probably I've, I have one friend I always joke and I'm like, it's probably not going to be your delivery man. Like you got to go outside and find him. It's not like coming to your door. And also, what energy are you bringing with you when you're going out there? Is it, from that perspective of like, these people are all trash and this isn't working and there's no one for me and woe is me? Or is it, oh, I'm so excited to see what today brings me and maybe I'll make a new friend and maybe I'll find a penny, and you know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's what perspective are we kind of moving in the world that's going to draw to us more of the
Exactly.
same, right?
I made a joke during a reading. I remember this lady, she's in her 40s. I said, he's in the area, like the person you're going to marry. I said, he might just knock on your door. Why do you go? And she's a faithful person. She prays a lot. So I said, just pray on it. A couple months later, she goes, I thought that was the funniest thing I ever heard. She goes, a man just knocked on my door. So what happened was he was cleaning the gutters, but he'd actually known her from years before when
Oh,
she
so
used to
funny.
teach. So he would drop off his kids at her class. This is like 10 years or 12 years prior, right? And now they're both single. And she was like, and he just knocked on my door. Like I had no idea who was coming. Like she phoned for this service, and she was like, how on earth? It really can happen, but
Yeah.
the probability is not so great.
Well, and
So
she was doing all these other things too.
yeah,
So
exactly. Exactly. She has like a
I can
very busy life.
imagine.
She's an
Yeah.
employee, she's a business owner, takes care of her children, her parents, all that. But the going out and the energy, it's all your mindset. So one thing I don't like about online narratives is they'll say, you're not going to meet anyone serious on Tinder. That's not true. I know lots of people who got married off of Tinder and all the other apps, right?
Me
It's
too,
about
actually.
you,
It's
right?
weird. Yeah.
So, and then they'll say, you can't meet your wife at the club. It's a nightclub. No one takes seriously. Says what? Like, growing up in the 90s and the 2000s, everybody met people at the club. That's normal. It's a social gathering. So, and I was talking to my neighbor. She lives across the street. She's got kids. She's married. I said, where did you meet your husband? She was like, at the club. Like, where else? And I'm like, yeah, it's young people socializing with other young
That's
people
so
who are
funny.
also presumably unwed. Like, it makes perfect statistical sense. This is the
Yeah.
most probable place, a party. Will you meet other people? It
I
doesn't
think it's
have to
also
mean.
layering in that discernment, right? Of like
Yes.
it's not everybody who's at the club for sure. Some of them are like immediately disqualified. Some of
Yes.
them like we're still looking for the same in this example qualities or characteristics or integrity of a human that we
Mm.
would
Yes, but
want,
while the
right?
surface stuff comes up, they'll be like, well, I want a person who's really, faithful and calm and cares for me and this and that. And I said, okay, well, join some clubs at your church. They go, I don't go to church. I don't believe in that. Well, I don't know what to tell you. Sorry, if the club's not good
That's
enough,
where those people are. Yeah.
you just described a family person who's traditional and very faithful. You want to go in that, like, this is like common sense, no? Like, no, but it's like, I don't know what to tell you,
Yeah.
people don't get approached as much as they used to, like pre-lockdown and all that stuff. So we've just got to have that energy. We've got to send that signal out into existence that we are looking for a new job. We're looking for a better medical report, but it's you. You have to signal that to existence. And honestly, some of the best advice I can give is to be bold. Like, really demand what you want from life. Don't ask permission. I think like astrology is a good one and what you do, because I think people come to you for permission. Like, do you think I'll succeed?
Sometimes. Yeah.
It's like, I don't, what do you think? Which is, I'm scared to say face to
Yeah.
face, I'll get slapped, but I'm like, what do you think? Do you think you'll succeed? But truly give yourself permission to think of
Yeah.
yourself as someone who matters, who deserves
Yeah.
good things.
That's such a valid point. One of the things that so early in my work I worked so hard on personally that I always give to people is just for them to sit with the question, whose permission do you need to make that decision? Because a lot of times we don't realize we're reaching for like a parent's permission or a I don't know, someone outside of us to say it's not our fault, so that discomfort is not going to befall us, and if it does, it won't be our fault. You know what I
Yes.
mean? So that's such an important
Yes.
aspect of it is like you have the permission to make a choice, and then if you don't like the results you can choose again or see what that choice leads to with the whole everything we've been talking about, the destiny and the free will and all of that. It's sometimes we need to it might not show up in such a linear way. Like sometimes these choices that we're making today to like move house and find a new grocery store and a church, whatever, in 2 years that might lead to that thing that you're hoping comes to fruition. And the other thing I would love for you to touch into, I struggle with this one back and forth, this non-attachment to the outcome. Because we
Mm.
all, I mean, if you're a follower of Abraham Hicks, like a lot of us are, we know we're not supposed to be attached to like how the thing shows up, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's where it gets sticky is a lot of people either are unhappy with the options or the thing didn't show up or turn out like we thought we wanted it. And now we've done this 10 years of schooling or whatever it is.
Oh. Oh, yes, that's painful. It happens.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about non-attachment, but I also want to mention for advice, because you
Oh,
said
yeah.
like prediction. So let's say I do have a client who really wants to meet a partner, and I see in their chart they will meet their partner through something fun, such as a hobby or a party, but they don't party. And so I'm telling them, what hobby do you have? And they'll say, I don't want a hobby. I don't do anything. So I said,
Mm.
okay, so how are you going to meet someone? Because I'm telling you, it sounds crazy, but it's like your soul chose this. So you're technically
Yeah.
asking yourself for permission and you're refusing to get it or take it, which I understand because I'm heavily conditioned by this. Like when we're young, we listen to our parents, then we listen to our teachers, then we start working, we listen to our bosses. It's almost like the ability to
Friends,
think for ourselves.
everybody. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Like you're not sovereign. So I said to them, you have to do something fun. I know that sounds too good to be true because most people would love to meet someone that they're going to marry doing something fun.
Yeah.
And most of them don't. Like maybe they're at work or maybe it's tragic. I'm like, you're one of the lucky ones, but they just don't want, they don't do it. So I'm like, I don't know. I can't do it I'm sorry. I can't breathe for you. I can't, no one can. So
Yeah.
you've got to like be responsible for whatever the fallout of that really is and take action accordingly. And so, as Abraham Hicks said, like the thing that you want is almost never on the path of that thing. I would just
Yeah.
distract myself. Truly, like I said, I'm a very mental person. So, doing something physical takes me out of my head and it feels relaxing.
Hmm.
And if you're a doer, taking a nap, getting a massage, walking your dog, well, just go. When's the last time anyone just went to go watch a sunset or just sit outside? It's like we're
Yeah.
always so busy and so fast moving. So distract yourself with something that's pleasing to you and take your mind off of that, you know?
Yeah.
So for example, say you want to get married, you're getting ready to go to someone's wedding. Instead of already dreading, like I don't have a plus one, it's so awkward, it's another year, just start getting excited. Okay, I get to meet new people. I get to be happy for this couple. It's a
Yeah.
new place. It's something refreshing. You just have to alter that mentality. But I do find in the modern age, before anything else, we're consumers. We consume
Yeah.
more media, news, things that I go, why is this news? you know,
Well, yeah.
Images, advertisements, social norms are changing a lot faster than they ever have in the history of our civilization, that we almost consume by default on autopilot. So if we really want something, I feel that we were trained because of so many like ads and entertainment to just want it like ceaselessly and incessantly. And
Yeah.
that's the worst thing that you could do. You pretty much scare it away with your desperation and your intensity. And not everything can handle that, right? It's almost like it has a stench, like your thoughts are just so heavy that just distract yourself with something else. Like, I don't know, play Scrabble or, yeah, get a cat. I don't know, do
Well,
something else.
I feel like I just said this to someone recently. The gal in your example, like it doesn't have to be something that's fun to everybody or on TV. It just
Mm.
has to be something that's fun to you. What's fun to you? It could be a book club if that's what's fun to you. Like it doesn't have to be a party. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Just anything that's fun for you, which is the best. Like, I wish I had that in my chart. Be like, oh, I don't have to struggle. I just have to have fun. That's awesome. But some people can't even give themselves permission to have fun. They feel they have to earn love, which is
Yeah.
sad. You don't have to earn love. You have it just by virtue of the fact that you exist.
Well, I think we can get, I mean, I've noticed it in I don't know, everywhere. We can get so hyper focused on that one thing that we have decided is missing, right? So when I coach people around those that want a relationship, it's like, okay, well, you're hearing the primary concerns. I'm lonely. And it's like, well, why aren't you getting filled up in your other relationships so that you're not lonely? Like, why are you having a hard time spending alone? Like, let's look at these
Mm.
factors and see what's happening here, because just because you're not partnered doesn't mean you have to feel like loneliness or alone. Like that doesn't, those two things don't have to go together. So I think it's such a good idea to kind of look at how are we feeling and why are we feeling that way, and are we missing an opportunity to fill ourselves up in a different way. I mean, it's not necessarily distracting ourselves from that thing that we want, but it's okay, not getting so fixated on this direction and opening for alternate avenues of receiving, I guess is
You
the
know
way
what
to say
works
it.
really well? When you bring money into it. So
Mm,
wanting something like unrequited love is thankless work, and it hemorrhages your energy, gives you leaky aura. It's like really, really not good. So if you say to people, if you stop thinking about love, you'll find love, which they roll their eyes or they like want to insult you. So I have to think of it like this. Would you ever in your right mind deposit $100 a day, just throw it onto the sidewalk every day for years and years of your life? You'll say, no, that's stupid. That's what that is. You're not getting a return on your investment. You are spending your mental energy, your emotional energy, your heart-centered energy, which is so precious
mm,
and sacred, on something that isn't there. put it into yourself, as you said. Look, and how lucky are you as a human being to actually be interesting? You get to have interests, you get to have
Yeah.
shows you prefer watching. Give yourself credit. Say like, oh, look, I woke up another day. First of all, thank God.
Yeah,
Secondly, I
totally.
get to eat the food I like. I get to do the things I like. I have a skill. I can make a living on that. I can earn a little on this. And then I get to buy more things I enjoy. I get to spoil my children or my nieces and nephews. When you look at it that way, that you can take your love and spread it everywhere and
Yeah.
fill your own cup, it's so beautiful. And that's a return on your investment, all those relationships and all those things about you, really celebrating yourself. Even a skincare routine is a form of like self celebration,
Totally.
good
Yeah, for
hygiene.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So romanticize your daily life. Make it fun. They used to do that a lot. They used to have those like single women rom-coms of the 90s, and they would do like the montages of the morning shower or,
Yes.
making dinner, like whatever it was. Put on a little music, cook your supper, let the smell waft through the house, light a candle, enjoy yourself, enjoy your life.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you don't like that, make some friends and do it with them. And
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
it's like there's options, even though we don't always like what we think are the only options. There's always options. We just might not.
Always.
Yeah, it
Yes.
might not be what we thought we wanted. So it's just this topic is just so interesting to me. The diving into the destiny
Yeah,
and
and it's even ties into things like karmas, like people think that
yeah,
karma, it depends on the mentality, it depends on the culture, but it's a like a modem of punishment. No one's punishing you. You feel punished. That's why you evoke evidence that you're punished or unlucky. But that's not it. It's just the law of cause and effect. And it's actually something you should be grateful for. You can learn a lot. I remember one client, I don't think she cared for me very much. She said she was single, she hated her job, she wanted to lose weight and look better. And she named like 6 or 7 things that went wrong in her life, even though she's like my age. And she just linked it back and she said, I'm sure my relationship with my mother is to blame for all of this. Can you tell me my karma with my mom? And she didn't have any bad karma with her mom. I looked at it any way I could and I said, but we're all different people and your soul chose your parents. Like, what did you learn from that? Maybe, if you left home early, it made you independent. It made you who you are. But I said, sorry, like I can't. And then she emailed me really angrily. She's like, I know it's my mother. I said, I don't know her. I don't know you that well,
yeah,
but isn't there another way that you could look at this? Because astrologically, I can't give you that answer. It would be a lie. I don't want to lie to you
yeah.
you know so I can't lie. I mean, I have had to tell many women they won't marry till they're like 42. That wasn't
Oh, I'm
easy, but
sure
I
that goes over well.
but I can't lie to you. Actually, it's worse when someone's 22 and they're not going to get married by the time they're 25. But I was like that when I was 22. I was like, 25, I'll be like old, because you don't
Oh, that's
know,
funny.
and then here we are many years later, I'm still
Right. Well, you
unmarried.
can. Might not go that well for you, but you can. You can
That's why I
try.
say, yes, sometimes you can. It's not advisable, right? But it's like, that's the karma thing. It's like you're
Yeah.
punishing yourself. You're taking this like spiritual catchphrase of like karma with your toxic parents, and you're effectively, you've hijacked, like ruined your own life over some like probably clickbait nonsense, which again doesn't show up in your chart, isn't real. And you could always tell when someone's had horrible relationships with their parents because they're the happiest people. Number one, it's in the chart. Number two, they're like, I learned and I grew and
Yeah.
I'm wise and I'm indestructible and I'm over it. And they tend to have an urge to do better for their children and better for themselves. And
Yeah.
again, if you have time to sit there and like just hate on someone so intently, I do wonder, that energy, again, it's not a criticism, but you could use it for something. So you could build a really good life with the amount of
Right.
mental, like brain waves you're giving to that thing you don't prefer. It doesn't make sense.
It's so true. And it goes back to free will, I guess, that no matter what lot we're dealt in life, we have the choice of how to, do we perceive it as another thing stacking up against me, or do we perceive it
Mm.
as, oh my gosh, I just learned so much from that. I don't want to, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to do it that way again, or I really loved that, or now I know what job I might like because I definitely didn't like that one. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean?
Yeah, like I've had a lot
Yeah.
of bully bosses who were honestly pretty incompetent, but they were really mean to me, which I never understood because I was
Not
like, you
fun.
hired me? And that's one day I was like, well, what am I going to do? Hate every job I have for the rest of my life or trade on a skill and become self-employed? So I was like, well, there you
Yeah.
go. You can choose that. Feels very empowering, or whatever the case may be. Again, like putting that love into the world expecting it to come back in a beautiful way rather than waiting for someone to put your love into. You could just put your love anywhere, you know?
And it sounds like nobody's destiny in any modality is that everything's just going to be comfy on that lazy river, wonderful, no challenges, no sadness, no discomfort. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's why we come into this human
Mm,
experience, because we have the perfect version somewhere else. So it's like I think we all have that, right? Like that's our lot
exactly.
for all of us.
Isn't they say like the person you marry isn't the same person that you divorce? So it's like you don't
Oh,
really know anyone until you see what they're like when they're mad and if they have coping skills for stress, for
yeah.
self-soothing. So it actually shows you how many dimensions an individual psychology can possess. And that's really favorable because if you can handle yourself, if you have composure, if you can endure through tough times, they say smooth seas never made a skilled sailor, it gives more cause for celebration. And the most successful people I've met have said success is easy. It's actually boring. You get used to it. Like it loses its effect, but they said like failure's fun because I always learn something. And when I heard this, I was a
Yeah.
broke grad student. I was like, oh, shut up. Easy for you to say you're loaded, you know? But now I get it. I'm just like, yeah. Because it's once you figure out success, and they say like the hardest thing to do is earn your first 100,000 or first $1 million. This is just what I've heard. Like even Abraham
Yeah.
Hicks has said that. And then they said, but once you figure it out, it's just easier to earn the rest. But you have to break through that ceiling that's like that mental limit. And the same
Yeah.
goes for love. You think that love can only come from a romantic relationship or it can only come in this way. And this is the type of love that you crave, not to feel lonely, then you have to broaden your definition. But that's the fun part because you're going to end up surprising yourself in the most beautiful way, you know?
Oh my gosh, just think of how much, even when times are hard, we pick up so many nuggets of wisdom and so many those beautiful micro experiences of thinking of a conversation I had recently with a gentleman who had lost his son, and he was talking about all these profound moments of perspective that his son in his early 20s had at the final part of his illness, and like those micro moments of beauty and connection, and we'll miss it all if we're only focused on the prize right at the end. So
True. And again, I also think children are better teachers as well. Like I've spent time with my sister's children and they point things out that you would never understand or see. And
yeah.
also they don't lie as much. So, you know,
Yeah, I think it's if we're willing. I mean, my kids still teach me all the time. If I'm willing to get over myself and listen to what they're what they're
true.
saying
Like I really
sometimes.
believe being a parent is a gift. Like I think a child is a gift for that
Yeah.
reason. So I don't think there's also anything worse than losing a child in my opinion,
Oh,
but
I can't even imagine. Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
want
it's
to even,
terrible.
we shouldn't imagine, we're going to delete that thought.
Yeah.
But how wonderful of that gentleman to be so gracious and so poised and so profoundly wise. And
Yeah.
honestly, in the language that you were using when he was talking, when you're telling us now the nuggets of wisdom, it's like he's speaking love. You know, he's like,
Totally. Yeah, he wrote a book. He was on the podcast.
oh,
Crazy.
okay, wonderful.
It's all about this. So it's like it's yeah, and he would have missed that whole, no, and again, it's these are the things that just happen in life, right? Like it's this we all go through terrible times and bad things happen, but it's yes, we can focus on that and that's a part of it, of course, but we have these other options and things we can focus on, and we miss it if we don't.
It's just mental training, truly. It's just like extensive mental reflection and training.
Yeah.
The training wheels have to come off one day eventually.
It's so true. Yeah, and personal development is such a big,
Mm.
continuous part of it. I want to shift gears a little. Now, we know that we have our individual charts, right? That's what we've been
Mhm.
talking about. But we also have charts for our countries and globally, right?
Collective, yes.
How does this work? Because is it by the birthplace of birth time of the
Okay.
country? Like, how are we
Yes.
casting these? I don't
So
understand. I never
it's
understand when people do them.
it's really fun. It's called mundane astrology. And actually historically, let's say like whatever 500 years ago in Europe, this was the most, like back then you couldn't be anything reputable if you didn't know astrology. You could be like taken seriously as a physician or as an advisor at the court. So mundane astrology is basically the astrology of places, okay, so countries and things like this. And then it would be horary astrology, which is astrology of the hour. So it's the time
Okay.
that the astrologer receives the question. So you don't need the
Mm.
person's, birth information because back then as well, a lot of people maybe weren't literate or didn't have stable records or
Yeah.
clocks. So most people didn't really know. Maybe they were born in the spring or something like that. And then
Even
dead
now in
last.
different countries, it's documented in such a like a
Mm.
loose way in some places still,
Yeah, I've
right?
met people like that. They're like, I don't actually know when I was born, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, interesting. They're like, I think it's February. And I know a friend of mine, her father, he's born in July, but they never kept a record. So he was never formally registered. So when he moved to Canada, he just chose December 13th. So even though they know he's
Wow.
like a Leo or something, they're like, we don't care, like, you know?
So
So yeah, it's
fascinating.
interesting. But then dead last was natal astrology, which was pretty much going to be for, I assume, like people who are more aristocratic or had like a family Bible with stable written record.
Hmm.
And then now it's completely flipped. You know, now it's me, me, me. The individual is on
Yeah.
top with natal astrology, then horary astrology, because you could just have a horary chart say, will I get a job? Will I get the apartment? Will I have a first date? Will he call? Will she come? Whatever. And
Okay.
then dead last is the collective. But yes, so mundane astrology is basically that. You cast the time and date at the moment the country was formed. So for the
Okay.
United States, it's going to be July 4th at the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Okay. So you can cast a
Interesting.
chart for the US. And so there are two disputed sort of times of when this signatory event took place. But the most common one will give the rising sign of Sagittarius.
Okay.
So yeah, which is the sign of reaching too high and being overly optimistic, which I find really funny because
Oh, that's so
um, that
interesting.
means it's ruled by Jupiter. And when Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, it's normally a good thing unless it's a Sagittarius ascendant. And normally having a chart ruler exalted is like, it's a beautiful life. Okay. It's
Yeah.
perfect. But it can make the person so optimistic that they are kind of blind, you know, like they will say, my business is going well. I'm gonna open three more. And people say, you know, it's not a good time for the economy. You should wait till the spring, do more market research. Like, no. And they just like go for it because they just have that joie de vivre and then they bankrupt themselves. So, you know, they just can't like
Very
listen.
American.
It's very,
Like it's
but
very, very brash and like
brash, but
get
also, yeah,
excited and
Sagittarius is, yeah, I like the optimism. Actually, everyone always says Canadians are so nice. I've always found this, I'm going to get in trouble, but always found Americans to be nicer. Even when my mother would travel there for work, she's like, Americans are so nice. Like,
oh,
they're just so
interesting.
upbeat. And they have like you have a more open temperament. You know, it's easier. Like if I approached you in the street to ask for the time, I don't think you'd do this. You know, you'd just be like,
Oh
yes,
yeah, no.
you know?
Yeah.
So, and I remember actually there was an American professor that I had, and she said, one of my best friends, we met when her phone ran out of battery and she was running late to meet her boyfriend. She asked to use my phone. And I went, what? And I said, I would never. She went, why? It's just another woman like my age. I was like, I would laugh and be like, do you think I'm dumb? I'm trying to get robbed. Get out of my face. I'd probably like fight her, you
Oh,
know? And
that's
she was like,
funny.
you are rude. And I was like, I'm smart. Like, you're crazy just giving people your phone. I'd be like, no way. But
So
yeah,
funny.
she's the normal one in this scenario because clearly I'm very guarded. But yeah, Sagittarius is the rising sign. So it's like effectively what people notice about you first, or rather like a characteristic embodiment, I'll put it like that, though it does have physical description. Okay.
Okay.
And I mean, funny enough, Sagittarius is very broad. It's very vast, and America is a massive country with a lot of
Yeah.
variety. People always say Americans like they don't know anything about the world. I'm like, have you been there? You have no reason to leave. Like you can ski and
We're like
swim. You
50
know,
countries in one
yes,
country. It's
exactly. It's got
yeah.
variety, and Sagittarius is the sign of cultures. There's a lot of linguistic and what are they called? Like not accent, dialectic differences and things like this.
Okay.
Food culture in America, but also Sagittarius is freedom seeking. Rah, you know, the eagle.
Mm,
So I'm like, yes, it's a very freedom seeking country. Spirit of enterprise and
yeah.
entrepreneurship is very much alive and well. And so when Jupiter in the eighth house, and also I think you know, you have sun there as well, it's a Cancer, and that's hidden things, so no one really knows how
Okay.
it operates or why, but it does, you know. So it's kind of
Interesting. Well, and
mystical.
there's so many layers, which is very Cancerian.
Yes, oh yeah.
So the chart of the US, for example, or Canada or any country, you should so choose to look at it. It's representing that country as if it was
A
a
person.
being of itself.
Yes.
Okay, so
So
it's looking at the things that are intrinsic and happening to and with that country as a unit, right? As a whole.
mhm. So yes, you can see
Interesting.
in the chart of the states interesting things like this is interesting. It's you're gonna like this. It's Moon in
Okay.
Aquarius. And so I would say, you know, a lot of people like from the outside are like, streets are paved with gold. It's a great place to live. There's
Yeah.
opportunity in America. You know, you can make a life for yourself. But moon in Aquarius isn't very comfortable, and the third house is really harsh. And the moon is going to symbolize the demographics or the people. So Americans, I feel, are very fortunate. They can scrutinize their own government. They can. And the third
Yeah.
house is communication, and they do. And they have this ability to kind of assess and analyze very Aquarian manner. You have academics criticizing the legal system, journalism, like whatever else. And I'm like, wow, it's like so funny to me from the outside looking in. I'm just like, that's really cool, because a lot of places you can't do stuff like that. I'm not saying
So
like
true.
it's bad or good, but it's just you're able to exercise certain personal freedoms.
Yeah.
So if I looked at that chart, I'd say, oh, that's really cool. And there's something else you can do if you want. It's kind of fun. You can run like compatibility between yourself individually in a place,
Oh,
So
interesting. That's so cool. So, like, if you were thinking of moving to somewhere else, you could check
yeah.
your home
Yes.
country and that country you're wanting to go to and see
Yes. So like,
compatibility.
okay, so Canada for me, it's okay, like at best. I have to work 10 times harder to get anywhere. Like, I have
Okay.
to endeavor a lot more. It's not doesn't make sense, it defies logic.
Yeah.
But when I lived abroad, everything fell into my lap. Like within less than 2 months of moving there, someone met me and they were like, they invented a position and gave me a job I didn't even apply for. That's unheard of.
Wow.
And I met someone and I ended up partnering with them. And I was like, here I was
Okay.
single for like 5 years. So it just like, it just falls out of nowhere. So you can
Yeah.
kind of, and that's, some people like it's relocation astrology, and some people give this a lot of weight. I want to make something very clear. If you're thinking about it, it's totally fine. However, please note, no matter where you move, you don't escape your karmas. It might
Yeah.
alter how they look. It might alter some of the effect, but like I said earlier, you're walking down that hallway. It's your destiny. You're
Yeah.
not getting away any of your problems whatsoever. They just look different.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. In a different
Yes.
currency,
Yes.
maybe.
Yes. And some places you should avoid. Like if let's say a country has like 3 or 4 planets and they would fall into your 12th house or vice versa, then you would effectively go there and not get anywhere. Like you would lose a lot
Okay.
of money, you would lose a lot of time, a lot of energy. You shouldn't go there. You should go somewhere else.
These are all the kinds of things that when people are asking me, because I can see the general energy and as it relates to that person, if they're, for example, considering two jobs, I could energetically take a look at those companies and tell the vibe of the leadership, the current plans moving forward that
Mhm.
might change. But with astrology, it sounds like there's so many things happening. So if we're looking at ourselves versus like looking at the country, for example, looking at ourselves, we might see, you gave the example earlier of like, oh, this person definitely needs to be a doctor and a teacher, and they're a very high level, high achieving person. If we're looking at a country, are there pretty clearly some things we like should be doing? And is that where free will then comes in and we have to collectively all want to move towards being a teacher and a doctor? Does that make sense
Ah,
the way I'm saying it out of my face?
I'll,
I'm like
I'll use
processing it as I'm saying it.
I'll
So,
use the states as an example. So because of the
okay.
eighth house, it's very covert. Nothing about America is what it seems. The way that it operates, it's almost like a facade or something like that.
This
So,
feels very true.
so well, the eighth house is things like secrets.
Yeah.
So they trade on secrets. And that's fine. What politician is honest? Let's be let's be serious. What government is perfect? No, because they're human. They're run by humans. They're flawed. But so speaking of change and how you would enjoy, let's say, living in the United States, if you're one of the, what is it, 350 or so, maybe more million people now,
Yeah.
it's going to be an eighth house thing. So you're going to have to
Okay.
do it energetically. You're going to have to change your psychology and change your spirituality to affect change. It's not going to be external. If it was something like in the 10th or the 7th or the first house, then it could be like, let's gather, let's sit in the park and tell stories and hold hands, or something. But this is
Yeah.
very much like individual. You have to change the mass consciousness. There's something in the consciousness that's very unstable. Like the eighth house is
Okay.
really unpredictable. So I would say, well, if you want to enjoy your life there and you're currently not happy with it, it really is. It's going to sound corny, but it is very like kumbaya. Like you have to meditate every morning, not take things personally, and you are the one affecting change. Okay. You don't
Yeah.
think you are because you can't see it, but you are. You are a part of the greater whole, and it does make a difference. So for the states specifically, it's not an action thing, which is so funny because America does identify with powerful action. Like it's a huge,
Yeah.
it's the greatest military in the world, isn't it? Yes.
Like think of every movie from the 80s.
There you go. Yes.
Like,
Men in ripped little tank
it's
tops,
what we
little,
want to identify with,
yeah,
or,
big muscles and
get them.
yeah. But
Oh,
yeah,
that's
it's
so
very much
interesting.
a deep like psychological thing there.
Oh, that's so interesting. And actually, I thought about this when we were talking earlier too. For me, there's kind of these, I don't know, cliche sayings that we've all heard that through my own practices and practices that any of us can have kind of clicked in. I know it's a Buddhist saying, anger is like drinking poison and expecting your enemy to die. So it's through meditation and stuff that I really started to see, oh, this is how every action and behavior and interaction creates this huge ripple. I kind of didn't, I mean, I know, like, yeah, you're nice to someone and then they're nice to their boss and they're nice to their kid and the whole thing. But it just hadn't really clicked in the same way for me. Does that make sense the way I'm saying it? Like, I think the ripple is highly, highly underrated and under noticed.
It really is. I'm like you. I used to think that I was like, well, I'm going to do the good thing just because that's the thing to do. I don't question it,
Yeah.
But then when someone makes you mad, you're like, no, no, gloves off, because I can be nice as long as I feel like it, But if you're rude
Yeah.
to me, then it's just like, no, I'm going to defend myself, So I'm suddenly
There's
not very
also
spiritual.
boundaries. Yeah. It's fair to have
Yes.
boundaries.
Yes. So I suppose I'm a big follower of the teachings of Yeshua ben Yusuf, so Jesus Christ, and he did only emphasize two of the original of the tablets, 10 commandments that were given to us. So I think those were the most popular ones, but there's one God basically, and then is do unto others as you would have them do unto you, because you are
Yeah.
one. You really are one. It doesn't, so Louise Hay had this thing where she was talking about wealth, and she says, she's trying to change poverty consciousness in this recording. And she said, like, I once borrowed or took a paper clip for my job because I thought, what's the big deal? Like, it's a paper clip. And I don't know what it was, but maybe like $300. She said the check was on the way to her in the mail for that amount and it got lost and she never got the money. And she said that was a painful lesson, but I learned never to take something that's not mine, And I think about
Mm,
that, like, yeah, you don't see how a paperclip could be valued at 300 or whatever dollars, but it's the principle. It's the
yeah.
principle. Don't be cheap minded. Don't be cheap in your spirit. Like I talked about that a lot on TikTok. I was like, I don't like cheap people. I don't like being friends with them. I definitely don't date them because if you're cheap with one thing, you'll be cheap with everything. How
I
you do
heard that
something is how you
quote. It's
do
a very good
everything.
one. Yeah.
They'll
It's
withhold
so
their
true.
love. They'll be like, well, I kissed you first yesterday. You should kiss me first today. Like, this is life, emotional
Like a
maturity.
tally. Yeah. Keeping score.
Yes, like tit for tat. It's just like, this is unhealthy. I can't be with someone with such a different consciousness. And that's another thing with like the frustration of the growing gap between the wealth gap
Yeah.
is like to eat the rich and they should, da, 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 da. That's a consciousness problem. I don't envy these people. I don't know them.
Yeah.
I don't care what they do. I'm concerned with my life and my business. Like, I know I'm going to get what's mine. I don't care about you. Of course, there's an element of physical survival, but ultimately, like, again, by being jealous of them or hateful or something, when you do succeed, you're going to get the evil eye like crazy because that's what you've been
Yeah.
putting out and that's the truth. So it's just not worth it in the end. Like, you just kind of get over it and you emotionally burn out. Because I used to get really wound up in just thinking about what's right and wrong, like very black and white. Like, it's not
Yeah.
fair, it's wrong. I don't care about those people, but in principle, this is stupid. Like, if anyone goes to university, you should have a job waiting for you. That's just smart, And they're like, depends what you study. Depends on nothing. That means your government failed to plan for your economy. Okay, you should be mad. But now that I'm older, I'm like, you couldn't pay me to get angry at anything. It's just not worth my
Yeah.
my nervous system getting French braided.
Yeah. Well, and then there's that other pop psychology idea of like, well, if I was in their shoes, I would be them. Like you would make that choice. You know what I mean? It's like we only can do our best from our perspective. So if we were in someone else's shoes, we might make the same decision as them, even though we're like, why are they doing that with no promise on the other end? You know what I mean? It's like, so we got to get everyone on the same page all at once. It sounds like
It's
that's really, really
true.
hard.
Yes. And make peace.
Yeah.
And it is hard, but it's good work. It's good inner
Yeah.
work. It's productive.
Oh yeah. And not that we're doing things only for results, because that also doesn't work, but there is a lovely byproduct. Like, you don't know this, but one thing I've been working on this calendar year in my own life, I just decided, I'm single and loving my life. And I just decided I'm going to be really intentional about creating and cultivating the garden of my relationships, and intentionally choosing, not just letting myself get have poor boundaries and get convinced to do something for someone, or because I'm a giver or whatever. But intentionally, if I'm going to do an event, it's because I want to be doing that. If I am going to go see a friend, it's because I care about that person and I'm building something with them, and everything else, deprioritize basically. And it's just like we can do things like that for ourselves. And that ripple of how we treat people then changes everything, because then it changes the whole group, family or friends or whatever, work culture all around us, right? So it does change things in our small experience, maybe much quicker, hopefully. In our large experience, who knows? Could go either way at any point, right?
True. But it's a good principle to date yourself,
Yeah.
and people who want more money should work on their relationship to resources. So a lot of times people ask
Mm,
about money, they go to their astrologer and they'll say, what do I do for money? I just need money. And if it sounds so funny, but you could see how karmas get tied up in weird ways. And I'm not joking. So much of the time, people who have money problems have a weak second house because it's
okay.
your wallet. It's how you sustain yourself in life. Okay. It rules food, like you eat to live, right? Your parents, they took care of you as a baby, presumably, or someone did. And so I'll say, you have this and this in second house. You shouldn't smoke. You can't put smoke in your mouth. You can't drink alcohol. You shouldn't curse. You shouldn't gossip. You shouldn't eat meat. It depends what planet is there. You'll decide what
Yeah.
they should, you know, refrain from consuming. And, I imagine if they weren't spiritual or open-minded, they would think you're crazy to think like, how do I get money by not gossiping? That's dumb. You go to work and get money. But it's not linear. And again, it's not black and
Right.
white. Life has layers and it's nuanced. So exactly, by watering your own garden, saying, I don't want to watch a horror film. I don't like scary movies. I don't like how they make me feel. I don't care if it's Halloween. I love you. You're
Yeah.
still my friend, but we can watch another movie or I'll see you another time. Like that's it.
Yeah.
So you're like loving on yourself. You're loving on them, everything's good, and it will bring in the type of love you want. But it doesn't have to be like, I join an app, I say I want this, and you better do it or I'm going to pop off or something.
Yeah.
It's just more
Totally.
playful, more fun.
It's such good advice. And I really feel, I don't know, all the things I've been working on for this kind of end of year pocket of time of looking at the energies and talking to Nancy, who comes on and tells us about the blue light beings, and talking
Oh,
to
yeah.
you about how the astrology all works. I see this opening collectively happening, this expansion, this us not looking so linear and tunnel vision, but looking multi-perspective.
Mm,
And I think that's part of what you're saying is like, no, we have to be willing to see all the potentials, all the perspectives, all the connectors, not
mm.
just this linear, oh, well, this only affects me like this and then I'm done. You know what I mean?
Yes,
So
exactly.
it's
Like
the
if,
planting the tree so your great grandchildren can enjoy the shade.
yes, it's like, if you want money, just look at conveniences. Maybe a friend
Yeah.
offers you a ride to the airport. You didn't need $60, but you still got the ride. So that put gratitude into that. And then
Right.
talking about the blue light beings and all that, I think we are here to learn as best as we can for what works for us. But the
Yeah.
thing too is, if you are closed off and only willing to learn from other people who are just like you, you're not going to accelerate your life experience. And I know it sounds insane, but truly, I mean, I don't care how it sounds because like I'm me, right? I don't care. But
Yeah.
you could learn from people that are extraterrestrial or beings,
Yeah.
so I really feel like in my lifetime there will be open contact. Like I believe this, and I think that
Oh,
that's
I
a
believe
precious
it
thing
too.
for
Yeah.
people who are hungry for information, who hunger to know. That why because my whole life is about spirituality. I live and breathe
Yeah.
this since I can remember, and I've always wanted to know. I jokingly say, like, I want to strip off the face of nature and stare at God. Like, I want to know why I'm here, what are we doing,
I
what's on your mind, what are we thinking,
think that's what a lot of people want to know.
I think I think a lot of us do. And then when you said blue light beings, I was like, that's my dream. Give me someone with a different perspective of Earth.
Yeah.
They don't have to physically not be here. I don't care if I get it in a dream. I don't care if it's a feeling, if it's a download, if it's a knowing. But why
Yeah.
would you disregard anything if it's beneficial to you, right?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we limit it when we think, we know based on our planet, if we've lived here, I don't know, past the age of 7, there's all these microcosms of dimensions. I mean, I think of when I was a kid, and the thing I wanted like so bad for a while was an ant farm, because I wanted to watch them work and how they cooperated and where they would go. And even just looking at like the insect kingdom and then the plant kingdom and then the animal kingdom, it would be ridiculous, given all the happenings, different communities at all times that don't even realize each other exists, for us to not think that it goes exponential in the other way too, not just down into the microcosms of our
Mm,
planet, but up into other
I agree.
stuff. Even if we can't name that or know what it is right now, it's
Mm,
like, well, certainly more information. If we can get information even from the tiniest insect, certainly it goes the other side of that spectrum too. Do you know what I mean?
exactly. Yeah. Even as a child, I used to think like, well, if God can make all of this, why stop here? Just it's
Yeah.
so dumb and limited. Like, obviously, there's something, and they're like, well, we don't know that because
Yeah, you
when
know, not
because
know it either.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know, not knowing either.
They loved me in Catholic school. I'm sure you can
Yeah.
imagine.
You were a
I had, and
favorite.
you know me a little bit too. So it's like, I mean, I had my questions. I was like, and back to this day one. Let's Genesis. Let's talk about this
Let's
some
do
more.
that.
Oh, they
Yes.
freaking hated me.
Oh man, but again, no offense, but a lot of people who are very faithful, I would say, not faithful, sorry, religious,
Yeah.
don't even know how to interpret a lot of the things that they read. You have to almost read it with your subconscious, not your
Yeah.
conscious mind, not literally, spiritually has to be understood. But the thing about the other life forms, I remember thinking the problem with that is if you're looking for life that is representative of the things you've already observed as a human being. So
Totally.
you're only going to recognize like a humanoid or something that's a quadruped or bipedal or something that it's like a fish. Like maybe it doesn't have a form, but it is a consciousness. It's like
Yeah.
maybe it's the wind. How would you explain to someone who's had never had senses what the wind is? You'd be like, well, you can't see it, but you can
Yeah.
feel it. They'd be like, you're making that up. That's
It moves
crazy.
around, sometimes fast and sometimes slow.
Yeah.
It's like the atom, right? They used to think like, oh my God, we got there. This is the smallest thing. And then till it opened and then they're like subatomic, like,
Yes.
you
Yes,
know,
the strangeness and
so
charm. It can't be
yeah.
seen, but its effects can be felt. And that
So
makes up
interesting.
everything. So for people to think that it stops here is like, and honestly, the truth is quirkier and weirder than anything we could ever discuss. So, I mean, we do
Yeah,
speak
for
truth
sure.
here, but people
Yeah.
think like spiritual people get together and just like are out of this, they're out of their minds. But really, science and
Eh.
physics to me is like more mind bending than anything
Oh
else, you
yeah,
know?
it's really, I keep threatening to do like this deep dive in my life for like a whole side, not to make money off it, but career of like physics, because I'm just, it's so
It
fascinating to
is.
me, just the things they've already worked out, that it's like, yes, I could feel it in the energy, but I couldn't put science to it, you know? So
Mm,
it's so fascinating to listen to. I mean, we have so much access to so much information now through all the
mm.
magic of the internet. So
I know.
you
It's a
can learn
great
anything you
time to be
want.
alive. I am
Totally.
thankful I have the internet. I don't know what I would have done without the internet. I love it.
And still, with all this information, we can't tell people do XYZ, stand in this line, collect your destiny, and be on your way to happiness, right? Doesn't work like
True.
that.
I mean, yeah, that's true. Well, they've got to just, if you want it, you'll get it. That's the way I see it, you know? Like
Yeah.
when I'm craving
Well,
pizza, nothing stands in my way because I'm getting, I'm getting carbs. That's the end of it, you know?
or you might just accidentally invent a calzone. You never know.
They're even better. Yes,
You
even
never
better.
know. You've given us a lot of great tools and a lot to think about today, and a lot of, I don't know, kind of perspective shifts to consider as we finish up 2024
Mm.
and head towards
2025.
2025. I feel like buckle your seatbelts. Do you have any guidance, advice,
Sure.
tools, techniques, anything, anything
Anything.
you can
Let's
give
do
us
it.
for help, Monica,
Well,
please?
I would say, okay, so numerologically, 2024 is an 8 year. So it's a
Yes.
lot of transformation, the unearthing of a lot of subconscious things. And we've seen that. I feel like a collective pain body has really erupted with a lot of events, um, ending off 2023, a lot of upheaval, social conversations,
Yeah.
gender wars, everything like people just hating on each other left, right, and center. And we actually close off the year with a little more chaos with a few retrogrades. So,
Dun, dun, dun.
la-la-la. So Saturn's being,
Yay.
yay, indeed, because we need change. It's good.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't wish anyone pain or misfortune, but we're going to keep
Well,
perspective, that
I mean,
we
we
are.
know it's human nature to kind of try to lock into something we feel comfortable
Mm,
in and not want to change, even if change could potentially be better. So I think sometimes we do need these, probably why it's structured this way, these upheavals, eclipses to shake up that energy, to be like, hey, get out of that comfort zone. You're not doing any good here. So,
exactly. So this is the one thing. Any debilitated planet, speaking of destiny in the North Node, will remedy itself over time and through wisdom and
okay.
maturity. But the nodes, you kind of wrestle, you kind of grapple with your destiny, you grapple with fated things. So again, we're closing off the year. We had an eclipse in Pisces September 17th and one in Libra October the 2nd.
Yeah.
Jupiter's retrograde. Saturn is retrograde. He'll go direct November 14th. Mars will retrograde first week of December and then overlap with the Mercury retrograde in December. So we're going to start 2025 a little sluggish, but a
Okay.
good time to review. So my advice is if in your birth chart you have Jupiter retrograde, Mars, whatever, Mercury's naturally retrograde there for you, that's your time to catch up. Like, let's say you applied for a
Okay.
promotion and you're scared you're not going to get it. Those other people probably don't have those planets retrograding, but the one time that planet goes retrograde and you have it retrograde motion, you can accelerate yourself. So you can
Okay.
overtake your competition. So don't look at anything and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so worried. The big events really are going to just start off the year strong. Late January, we have the nodes changing signs from Aries and Libra to the North Node entering Pisces and the South Node
Yes.
entering Virgo. And then, yeah, March 14th, a total lunar eclipse in Virgo. So if you have any Virgo in your chart, or you are a mutable rising sign, or like an earth sign, rising sign, or moon sign, you're going to
Okay.
receive a lot of energy from that. So I think it's going to bring in, Virgo's a healing sign. It's kind. And we also have another one, I think March 3rd, 2026 as well. So there's going to be a
Okay.
little bit of cooling off and something help us catch our breath before we hit the ground running again for another eclipse in September in Pisces. But
Okay.
yeah, and Jupiter is going to come out of debilitation in June. He is currently
Yay.
in Gemini. Yay. So he's in
Yay for
Gemini.
me. Uh, I know.
Some
It
relief.
sounds like maybe we want to, if anyone can, kind of plan a little spaciousness in January. Expect some delays, perhaps. Is that? I mean, I feel like that's always probably good
I think
advice,
too,
but
just naturally, there's never a better time. This did happen once. I don't even know how many years ago, maybe a decade. I don't remember, less than a decade. But I remember thinking it was February, and I was like, "Wow, a lot of stuff's retrograde." Then I thought, "Well, that's good because we need the first 2 months of the year just to recover from the holiday spending and
yeah,
the frenzy of that time of the year." And I thought, let it, if it's going to happen, you don't want it happening when you're trying to enjoy your vacation in
right.
August, you know,
Yeah.
in the deader months, that's okay. But, so that's coming up. And then collectively, like for the chart for the United States, it's really interesting because it's a rising sign, Sagittarius. So it is going to feel those eclipses as well. And it's
Okay.
because I use a whole sign system. So Pisces is going to be in the fourth house, and the fourth house is going to give the people, the home. So property. So you could look at changes in the real estate market or land itself, actual land. Okay.
Okay.
So another thing is something like agriculture, food prices, food quality are going to be big themes. Anything to do with flooding, water conservation, or waterborne diseases and infections as well.
Interesting.
So that's going to come up because Pisces rules ocean. So if you live in coastal towns or you're on the shores there, I would also
That's
say,
me.
as you, that's right, that is you. So
That's
that's going
me.
to be something because Rahu, or the North Node, going through Pisces with yeah, the eclipses there, that can cause some upheaval. So one of the things you could find, also the fourth is like your heritage, and it can be
Yeah.
your patriotism, your loyalty to your country. So, and the Rahu, the North Node, is illusions. It rules fog and smoke. So
Okay.
actually, funnily enough, you know, like the United States shouldn't be a smoky country. Like it shouldn't. I mean, they did in the 40s, and was it New Mexico or Arizona where they tested some of the first like atomic bombs? They shouldn't have done that, you
I
know. So,
think, yeah, those
so
places.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you
Bad.
have the North Node in the fourth house, you should not smoke. It will affect the lungs, so it can cause a lot of grief, you know. So it's like it looks like a
Mm.
country that's kind of split. Like on the one hand, people are rejoicing and they're ecstatic, and on the other hand, people are sort of like, "This stinks. I want out," you know, which is always so interesting. Like I was
Yeah.
saying earlier, Americans are really an interesting thing from the outside looking in. I would love to move to the States. I was like, what's wrong? I'd go to America right now, you know? And people are like, stay in
Yeah.
Canada. I'll switch places.
There's
I'm
a
like,
lot of
no,
great things about it, but it is very divided
it
right
is
now.
divided. So that
Yeah.
seems to escalate. Another
Oh,
thing
exciting.
is oh boy,
I'm not excited
it's gonna
about
be a
that.
lot of exciting things. So
Oh, no.
Mars, during Mars retrograde, he's going to go through Leo and then into Cancer, which obviously, as we know, the States is Cancer and the eighth house. So that can be a little bit tumultuous and interesting, and it can also transform things. And so one of the things that Mars in the eighth during a retrograde can do is cause an audit, like to relook at
Okay.
things. So let's say on a grand scale, I would say cross your T's and dot your I's when you submit your tax forms. You might get something back. If you've been hiding from the government, you might get busted, for example, during that time. So that will run into the new year as well. But honestly,
Everybody
maybe
get your business right. Whatever
yes,
you're doing, get it
everything.
right. Your
But
paperwork, your documents.
everything
Get
on
it
an
right.
individual level. On a mass level, we can see an overhaul of government structure as well. Now,
Yeah.
Mars also rules the militia, which is a little bit like, and what happens is he's going to make contact twice to the natal north node of the United States, which is quite confusing as well. And when Mars and the north node get together, in a person, they tend to have a lot of like heat in their body, or they're
Okay.
temperamental, or like they explode easily, but it's a combination for explosives. So we'll see like people can be really hot
Interesting.
tempered, short tempered, a bit more like, I mean, we've seen that in the vitriol in the past few years, just gone off the charts. I don't even know what I'm
Yeah.
watching on TV anymore. People are just talking to talk. But we can see stuff like that. So that kind of is a little bit concerning. But ironically, Mars also fixes things, though he breaks them. So
Yeah.
engineering, for example, litigators, physicians, surgeons, okay, those are sort of very, Mars's uniform professions, can be firefighter,
Okay.
paramedics. So those professions I'd keep an eye on, but also take it as a little bit like of an analogy. Though something will be broken, it will be repaired for something better.
Okay.
So you have to have a bit of faith, and that's just the process we were talking about this whole time. Like,
Yeah.
it's not straightforward, and you have to work towards that thing.
That's our lives. We work at things, something breaks down,
Yeah,
we pivot, work some more, something else. If the wheel
yeah.
falls off of our career, something else
That's
happens.
it. We just
Yeah.
learn as we go along, really. But
Yeah.
then 2027, we was very coming up very quickly. We're
It
going to have
is.
eclipse cycles in Aquarius and Leo, and the States obviously has a moon in Aquarius. So the moon again is the public, it's the people. So there could be a huge population spike, or a
Hmm.
mass migration, or the public could be, I don't know, I'm not distressed, because actually it's a combination for fame. So it could be popular, or
Interesting.
it could be on tabloids, or talked about quite a lot. But that's interesting. And Rahu, or the North Node, gives foreigners. So I do think a lot of foreigners will be entering America as of this year, because the nodes are getting ready to move, and then it will
Interesting.
continue to increase. And then the last thing I want to mention is a Venus retrograde in the house of children for the States. And the funny thing about that is, I think there will be some, I hope I'm correct, some overhaul of legislation and things like that regarding reproductive health, because the fifth house is children. And
Hmm.
Venus, I know if everybody thinks like Venus is relationships, but Venus is also cars, actually. Venus is swimming
Oh,
pools,
interesting.
and Venus rules the sperm and the ovum.
Okay.
So she's in that house and she's moving backwards. So I think people are going to reevaluate or reassess like family planning on a
Yeah.
personal level. And I think even on a great level, like, okay, what policies
I hope
work?
so.
What do we want? Things like
Yeah.
that. Because I know, also saw some article, it's like every other day, it's like this country is experiencing the lowest birth rate ever, and they'll do
Hmm.
anything but just pay people enough money to live. So
I
I
mean, I
think,
think that's the magic. I think there's a lot of people that would like to have more kids that just, yeah,
yeah, exactly. I
places
think
are pricing.
I think maybe it's South Korea and Seoul. Some corporations, because their birth rate is so low and they're so afraid, that they're going to give you a lump sum of $100,000 to have a baby. And when I read that, I
Wow.
told my mom, I was like, "Well, it needs to be a 1.2 million, like minimum.
Yeah.
Like 100,000, you can blow through in 5 minutes. It's not, it takes
Oh,
effort to raise a
yeah.
child, right?" So I was like, if you start giving people a couple $1 million per kid, now I'm listening. But I think,
Well,
yeah,
it's
they're
the
gonna.
thing we know. It's proper childcare and proper health care.
Yes,
And like, what about all these? What about these parts? Who's doing that? Yeah.
that's the thing. So a lot of this foreign involvement, I think, is going to erupt in the American public, in their psyche. They're going to say, "Where's this money going? Why and what
Yeah.
for? I need affordable daycare. I need gas I can afford to put in my car. Like, what do you want from me?" So I
Yeah.
know we've romanticized, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." That's in times of less fortune.
Yeah.
Okay, on the day-to-day thing, the average person wants the security to know that they're have access to things like a job, employment, housing, medical care, etc. And
Yeah,
I
that their
think,
kids are drinking clean water at school. Like
thank you,
little things.
no fluoride in the water,
Yeah.
I think
Oh,
that's going to reach peak and it's going to climax and people are going to like really be like, I've had it. Because on every front, everything I look at, whether it's food prices or enjoying my life or socializing, it's like as soon as I
yeah.
step outside of my house, it's like just, those like things you tap, just boop, $100. Just every time I leave my house, just $100. I don't even know what for.
It's
And
crazy. Yeah.
yeah, that's going to kind of erupt. And I think it's erupt is a good word. It's going to be a little bit like agitated and angry
Yeah.
and a lot of things. So I'm hoping that all these retrogrades cause this reevaluation and that the power really goes to the people, which truly, the moon in the third house signifies endurance and grit. Okay. I have moon in the third house, hence the grit. But it's people who are really good at self-defense and kind of relentless when they don't get what they want. So if that's the
Okay.
symbol of the public for the United States, then I'm very hopeful that the power goes and what it was intended to do was intended to
Oh
be
yeah.
a country ran by the people for the people. That's like a little bit more egalitarian than I think some super capitalists want to hear, but there's a
Yeah.
limit to
I
everything.
know. Yeah.
There's a limit to everything. Yeah.
It could be a little bit more for the people.
Yeah. A little,
There is
just calm, a little
a
bit
little
more. We get
bit.
some, good.
uh,
Yeah, like you have great transit systems and roads that connect a lot of things, but the missing piece is that gas price in the car, or car insurance, car notes.
yeah.
Let's just everybody take things into perspective. But yes, I'm hoping that 2025 is a rebirth of better values that serve people better in your country and my country as well. I'm really hopeful. I'm forever
Yeah.
hopeful, but there's only so much people can take.
Well, and I know personally and just in what I hear around, there are lots of people knocking on your Canadian border door there saying, let us in. So
Oh
who
yeah, we
knows?
have had massive boost of mass influx of people coming over during COVID. And interesting enough, for the first time in Canadian history, we also had the biggest recorded exodus of Canadians
Oh,
going to
wow.
their countries of heritage because
Oh,
it's just,
interesting.
it's so expensive, the housing,
Yeah.
and we're heavily taxed as well. People don't actually, until they come, people don't realize how expensive it actually is to live here. So housing, food,
Yeah.
job market is like non-existent. It's like crazy. So yeah, people have just kind of fed up and they're like, well, my parents migrated here from wherever. I don't speak the language, but I'll take my chances. And they get their little
Wow.
visa or citizenship and they peace out. So I can't blame anyone. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Wow.
crazy. Oh yeah. Oh my God. Also another thing, speaking of Canada, because I just read the statistic, crime here has never been like what it is now.
Oh,
And
no.
I was thinking that too with Mars retrograding as well. That's another thing. Law enforcement. I think they're going to maybe revise. If they're not going to make a lot of arrests, they might revise. I'm hopeful they will revise the prison system and
Ugh,
do better,
yeah.
like legally and the justice system, etc. But I mean, what can you do if your country is in peril and crime is on the rise? You have to counteract it somehow. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's like cool heads prevail. Okay. I'm not saying that because I'm spiritual and people are like, that's just a woman thing to say. I'm not saying because I'm female. I'm saying it because it's true. Okay. You can't fight fire with fire. Looking at statistics all day, God knows who wrote them or where they
Yeah.
came
It's a
from,
very Bruce Lee thing to say, actually.
Is
Cooler
I
heads
love
prevail. I
Bruce
feel
Lee.
like I feel like he's very like, yeah. And it is
Solid.
the only way forward. I know we are always supposed to be moving into this Aquarian age. So it is the way to be considering the people more, right? Is like you have to be
Yes.
calm and think it through and
And
not just
spread
make
love.
rash decisions. Yeah,
What if
exactly.
that was your mission is to fall in love with humanity, fall in love with love and be this like beacon or be so infectiously loving that people can't
Yeah.
help but reflect it back to you and you cause and affect change in your world. Why not choose that?
Yeah.
That sounds way more hardcore and punk rock to me, which this is probably not a very punk rock thing to do, but but that's
Right. I
way more
mean, I think it
hardcore.
is now. It
Yeah.
is kind of against the grain now, and
Mm.
maybe that's part of what we look at in our individual lives kind of as we close out the year is like isn't there just one act of love or kindness we could squeeze into each day, even if it's a small, something small some days, maybe something bigger other days, but just if
Mm.
everyone did just one little nice thing every day.
Please, no, I'm kidding. Just one, yeah,
Yeah.
just yeah, and turn it into a
Start with
game.
one.
Start
Yeah.
with one, turn it into a game, and see how far you can take it for that day. And then before you know it, you'll be living the life of your dreams, pretty much.
Yeah. as you know, because you deeply know my chart, I love a game. So like maybe that's how you're earning your expensive coffee that you want to get for yourself on the way to work. Maybe did I get my 7 my 7 love points for the week? Okay, I'm get who knows? You can get
Yes.
real creative with it. Save some
Start
money
with
at the same time.
yourself.
Yeah.
That happened this morning. I was like, oh, I have to talk to Joy later because I screwed up the time, as you know. And I was like, I can't, I had less than an hour to get ready. I have long hair. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, I can't disrespect this woman by not washing my hair. Although Wednesday's hair washing day, right?
Exactly.
And I was like, no, I'm doing it for me. I'm going to wash my hair. So I just ran. And then it turned out I had all day. But you see, it's a good thing because then I liberated myself to spend my time however I liked
Yeah.
until I got to hang out with you. So it
It's
sounds
all
like such
about
a stupid thing.
perspective.
Somebody's
Yeah.
out there thinking, what a moron. She just washed her hair. But you never know. You
No.
never know what it could do. Yeah.
Well, even though, I mean, it's a great point. Even it's kind of what we've been talking about, even those small tweaks of realizing, like, why am I doing this way? Or how do I feel about this? Hang on, let me just process this a little bit. We get into these grains of just doing, and we don't think about, oh, what could I think about this time that I've just gained? I could, if you're noticing you're in a negative mood and seeing things negatively often, it's like, oh, could I see this hour that I have now in a different way? Just starting to even question ourselves in that way, I think can start that ball of change maybe.
True. They say, like Abraham Hicks says that a lot. And we're talking about discernment when you're clubbing or whatever. And they'll say, well, this person, like, they were so good on paper. How could they be terrible? And I'm thinking, okay, well, if discernment isn't working for you, I always say what Abraham Hicks says. They say, you'll know it by the way that it feels.
Mm,
So that's it. If you're having negative thoughts, you're having a bad day, how does that feel to you? Catch yourself and be like, I don't
yeah,
prefer that. So I'm not going to think about it obsessively. I'm going to take a breather. When I come back, I'll figure it out or it'll figure itself out. But you have to
yeah,
honor and respect how you make yourself feel. Because again, like the poison analogy, yeah, a person can insult you and walk away. It's like a drive-by insult. It's just like the
yeah,
coldest thing ever. But if you sit there dwelling on it the rest of the day, they really did poison you against yourself. So don't let
yeah,
anything like that, the events outside of yourself, whether they're massive, like you have an election, whether they're global, whether they're in your city, you don't need that in your consciousness. You honestly, you don't need it in your spirit. Okay. You don't need it in your spirit.
yeah.
And I think we overhype, what do they call it? It's not literacy. They're like informed. We
Oh,
overhype being informed. I'm like, informed about what?
yeah,
Gross statistics, brutality, violence. Like, why?
yeah,
Who wants to read that before they go to bed? And you wonder why
yeah.
you don't wake up happy and you're in tears every morning. Give it a rest. Just pump the brakes a little. Maybe save it for the Saturday morning. The big papers they used to have Saturday mornings with they were like
Oh yeah,
chunky.
yeah.
Just maybe once a week, just like trauma dump from the news.
Oh yeah,
And then,
you can
yeah,
learn
just,
about other things if you're
yeah.
bored. There's lots of wonderful things to learn about
Yeah.
that
If
don't feel
you're,
traumatic.
exactly, if you're intent on being informed, just once a week, just
Yeah.
scroll or whatever, and then give yourself a break and rest.
Oh, well, thank you for being here. You've given us a lot to look forward to, a lot of great advice. I feel like I'm always referring people to you, but tell the people where they can find you. And of course, we'll have everything linked in the show
Oh, thank
notes.
you. GuruGrit.com. I'll be there. I offer astrology readings, of course, and they come in different formats. It could be like a single question, a horary question. Birth chart is the most popular, the whole chart.
Yeah.
And the last time I went on your show, I told you the loveliest people came to see me. So if you're watching,
Mhm.
I love you. Thank you so much. They were so nice to me. And I was like, these people are really nice. They talk to me like I'm a human being. This is really great. So
Our own little corner of
thank
the
you.
world over
Yeah,
here.
very gracious people. Truly, I was
Good.
so
I'm glad everyone's treating you well.
they have truly, and I'm in touch with some of them still. So thank you so
Good.
much for that. Going a year strong, and since doing your podcast this time
Yeah.
last year, I think it was October. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I was going to tell people make sure you check out the first episode, which
Oh
was
yeah.
episode 41, released in September
Oh, I think.
2023. Are Your Stars Aligned? Astrology Secrets You Need to Know with Monika at Guru Grit. So,
Well, thank you. And I had such a good experience. I thought I want to spread love and pump goodness into your
Mhm.
show and the people who came to me. So I made a discount code and little fun okay, for your name. So it's going to be Joy G is the key. Okay, so Joy
I
G is
love
the
it.
key. Will be at 30% off for the chart reading, for the birth chart reading. So if anyone's interested, that would be nice. So I just want to say thank you and
Oh
flow
my
some
gosh, that's so
gratitude back into
generous.
you. Thank
30%.
you.
Wow. I am going to link that in the show notes. So I'm writing it down. And
Joy
it's
G
all
is the
one
key.
word. Joy G is the key, all one word. And that's on the website, gurugrit.com. So
Yes, ma'am.
everything was linked in the show notes. If you're like me and have a hard time remembering things like this, just go into the show notes and it will be there. And Monica reads for me and lots of people that I know. And I can't say enough about you, and the depth of information that you give is fantastic.
Oh,
So
thank you. It
I can't wait
helps
to
to be
appreciate
type
you.
A because nothing goes unnoticed. I will find it.
And you just marinate in information and learning and scholarly knowledge. So it's amazing.
Thank you so much. I hope
Uh,
that it is noticed one day by my future employers. Amen. So we'll see.
I wish all those things for you. Well, thank you for
Thank
being
you.
here and shining your light.
Thank you likewise.
Well, what did you think of that conversation? Were you a little bit surprised about the positioning of destiny and luck and karma and all that comes with it? Are you surprised about the free will elements of it? I have to tell you, in my work, I'm not at this point. I realize we have so much free will in the way that we use whatever gifts and skills and abilities and limitations that we come into this existence with. But I love that through astrology, we can learn a little bit more about ourselves and our potentials and how we can better use our free will to move ourselves towards what is fulfilling to us in this lifetime. I'm so curious your thoughts about this episode. You can leave them in the comments wherever you're watching this. You can email me if you want to about it. I always love hearing your feedback. And as we close out 2024 and move closer to 2025, I just really wanted to have lots of different opinions and conversations about these ideas of what's destined for us, what's in our control. I use that word very loosely. What do we have the ability to add free will to alchemize into something else, is maybe a better way to say it than control. And what does that look like as it relates to the study of astrology, right? So I hope this conversation was eye-opening. I hope you had a great time with me and Monica. I am ever grateful for her spending time with us and sharing her wisdom and her light with us. She is an incredible soul. Again, everything's in the show notes, but you can find her on socials at Guru Grit, and her website is gurugrit.com. Don't sleep on that 30% code. That is so generous. I was even shocked and surprised and was like, oh my gosh, Monica, you don't have to do this. But I think she even mentioned in the episode, everyone that comes to her through this podcast has been incredibly lovely and wonderful individuals. So she wanted to do something special as a thank you for us. So if you've been wondering about your own destiny or wanting more information into your own chart, Monica's a wonderful resource for that. And make sure you get that code. Check out the show notes. So wherever you are when you're listening to this and whatever time of the year it is, just know that I am wishing you lots of luck, lots of love, and the ability to use your free will as you see fit. Big hugs, lots of love. Bye for now from inside Spirit Speakeasy.